We're in section 27 of Arlington National Cemetery. This is one of the oldest sections of the military cemetery at Arlington. And it's where the story of Arlington National Cemetery really begins. Arlington has so much history tied up in the Civil War. This section of the cemetery was begun in May 1864, really before there was a cemetery. How did that happen? It happened that 1864, the Civil War had been going on for several years, and Washington was really a hospital city at that time. There were as many as 50,000 soldiers and sailors in the hospitals of Washington, temporary hospitals set up all over town. And of course those people started dying, and they had to be buried. So earlier in the war, the national cemeteries were established at Alexandria, Virginia, and at the old soldiers' home in northwest Washington. They were planned to accommodate all of those who died in the Washington area hospitals. What happened was that the war went on much longer and was much bloodier than anybody expected, so that we pretty soon filled up the graveyards, the national cemeteries at Alexandria and at the old soldiers' home in Washington, and needed new burial space. So the quartermaster's office of the Union Army looked across the river and found this place, Arlington, and thought it would be a good place to begin burying people. Arlington happened to be the home of Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general. So not only was it a convenient place to begin military burials from the Civil War, it was also thought to be a matter of justice, maybe even vindication, if you want to call it that. The first military burials at Arlington came in May of 1864, well into the Civil War. And the very first of those burials was a private from the 67th Pennsylvania Infantry named William Christman. He was a farmer. He was from a poor family, and he came to serve in the Union Army. Unfortunately, he ended up in the hospital in Washington. He got a case of German measles, which killed many, many service members on both sides of the war. He developed peritonitis from his measles infection, and he died in a Washington hospital. Was brought across the Potomac River here to Arlington as the first military burial. Things were so desperate at that time in the Civil War. There were so many people dying that there wasn't much time for ceremony or ritual at Arlington. They would bring people over for burial day after day after day, and they went into the ground, as William Christman did, with no flags flying, no bugles playing, quite often not a chaplain to give them a send-off. So basically we were just trying to keep up with the carnage from the Civil War when Arlington began. During the war,